Welcome, humans and gentle humans, to San Francisco's third ever Cliterary Salon! It says pause for wild applause on my script. Does that feel wild? Can we make a wild... Yeah! Thank you. Folks, we've got a real treat next. Me. Really? Is that what I get? It's fine. Applaud! That charges my batteries. It's like a Wall-E thing where I have to... Lewis Evans, the clitless clitorado, has Benjamin buttoned in from a terrible future where all humanity is ruled by hyper-intelligent teddy bears and other fuzzy children's toys. His reverse time-traveling superpower is the only hope for our species' survival and eventual freedom, but instead of changing the past to save the future, he's chosen to basically fuck around this entire decade. So without any further ado, I give you me. The Countess of Monte Clitso from... and I do want to warn the audience that some of the piece is written in French, a language I do not speak and cannot pronounce. And I really set myself up for this. I feel exactly like someone who dug a deep pit in his front yard and then got his bicycle and was like, this is gonna be great. And maybe it will, I don't know. America's Funniest Home Videos had many successful seasons. So, strap yourself in, folks. Everything was a hot mess in France again. Napoleon, who had once ruled uncontested like choker necklaces in the 90s, was now out like choker necklaces in the early aughts. But just like choker necklaces, the former emperor was biding his time in a remote Mediterranean island, waiting for his moment to regain the throne. But does this look like a show about some short dude in France who got famous for being good at doing murder? Fuck no. This is a rich French tale of hot, steamy fucking revenge. Our hero is Edmond Dicta, a person presenting as a man and as a sailor. They were working on a boat, which is what sailors do. Things were going pretty well for them. Their captain had recently expired in a tragic pirate-themed sexual roleplay accident. Remember, kids, always remember your safe words when you're walking your own plank. Safe words are there for a reason. But Edmond had been promoted to captain. Plus, they were about to marry their childhood sweetheart, Mercedes, a woman from Catalonia, Spain's premier fiancé-producing province. Unfortunately for our glorious hero and their remarkably jaunty sailor's hat, things were about to get sad. The whole story is long and involved, and as French as a priest and a hunchback having a midnight baguette fight atop a burning cathedral. But basically, 3 shady bitches subtweeted at Edmund so hard that Edmund's ass was thrown in jail. Do not pass go, do not collect 200 francs. Not even the famously unpleasant prison known as the Chateau d'If. No, Edmond was thrown in that disreputable citadel's dirtier and more disreputable sibling, the shithole de Queef. The shithole was a hideous and unpalatable stone edifice located on a hideous and unpalatable Mediterranean island, which would eventually be torn down and replaced with a hideous and unpalatable golf course, branded after a certain American political figure. But the less said of him, the better. Just kidding, Cliterary Salon isn't afraid of the president. He's not some sort of dumpster fire Voldemort. Fuck Trump! Ahem. We now return you to your regularly scheduled parody. Our hero, Edmond, was trapped in the most hideous prison in all of the Mediterranean Sea for many years. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions. Okay, 6. 6 years. But 6 years is a really long time to be stuck in a small hole in a rock in the middle of the shitty part of the Mediterranean. Hell, 6 years is a long time to be stuck in Ibiza, widely regarded as the Mediterranean's most popular rock. If you met someone and they said, yeah, I went to Ibiza on vacation and yada yada, I couldn't leave for 6 years, you'd be like, shit. So our hero, Edmond, was losing their fucking mind, TBH. Fortunately, just before they got too absolutely crazy to function, they heard a scraping and a tapping at the wall. Edmond's former life as a slut and/or stud had trained them to never ignore the sounds of tapping at the wall. After all, before the invention of cell phones, that's basically how you get a booty call. 6 years had left Edmond thirstier than they'd ever been in their life, and so when they heard the scraping sound, they immediately began tunneling toward it. Eventually, the hole they made got bigger and bigger, and they were able to put their whole fist into it, and then finally it got bigger than that, and a priest came out. "Hello," said the priest, except this shit was France, baby, and so he said, "Bonjour." This has been your French word of the evening. The rest of this narrative will be rendered in English, even though it is the filthy peasant tongue, a language unfit to lick the boot of its Norman conquerors, a language with no poetry, no soul, no sexy extra vowels and L's in seductive places. Une langue qui est un morceau de merde. Thank you. The text here says I don't write this stuff, I just read it, but I wrote it. I made me do that. I reached through time and kicked myself in the ass on this thing. Back to English. "Hello," said the priest. "My name is Father Faria, but you can call me Daddy." Edmund was a proud revolutionary and held strong anti-clerical views. However, they were not opposed to eroticizing their own praxis by deconstructing the Catholic patriarchy with their junk. Upon the two lovers' rumpety-pumpety, of the sassiness of their num-nums, of their snoo-snoo, let this narrative tastefully draw the curtain. The only detail I shall divulge is that when you have been relying on the diet of a French revolutionary political prisoner, eating ass is a nutritional necessity as well as a genuine delight. The Papist Papa and Edmund spent many joyous months together. Month is a word that derives from moon, and moon means to expose one's buttocks. And that is exactly what these two souls did. But time passes and daddies start out old already. Father Faria died. With his dying breath, he whispered the secret of a miraculous island with a fabulous treasure to Edmund. "You must go to Monte Clisto. Clitso." I made up the word, but I can't pronounce it. "Monte Clitso," he whispered, and then expired like a freezer sausage carelessly left upon the countertop. Edmund was like, okay, one, okay, sure, and two, fuck being in prison, and so Edmund escaped. It was a daring and elaborate plot involving an eggplant, a scale model of the Palace of Versailles, and a strategically concealed vial of holy water, and if I had the right props, I would show you exactly how it was done. But I don't. C'est la vie. That's French for, this is the V. And we all know Anyway, Edmund just rode on off into the Mediterranean for an unrealistically long time. The sea grew strange in color. Odd mists wreathed the surface of the increasingly slick and tangy waters. Bizarre clouds hung in the sky. And then they reached the Isle of Monte Clitso. It was like no isle Edmund had... We can cheer for it if you'd like. Those of you who are familiar with my oeuvre will not be surprised to learn that it's an enormous clitoris and it talks. It has lines later on. Spoiler alert. It was like no isle Edmund had ever seen, and they were a sailor. Its color was fleshy, its surface smooth, its temperature warm, and its climate moist. Edmund scaled its sides and summited the Titanic nubbin. And then the island spoke. "Greetings, human," it rumbled. "I am the Isle of Monte Clitso." Yeah, said Edmund, who was quaking in fear, but preferred to address the unknown with a sarcastic and knowing demeanor. "What brings you to my squishy shores?" "I seek the treasure." "True treasure is to be found in erotic self-knowledge," rumbled the island. "Okay then," said Edmund, "I want the fake treasure. Whichever one is the treasure with all the gold." There was a long pause. "Fine," said the isle, and it produced a shitload of huge chests of gold. "Don't spend it all in one place." "You're not my dad," said Edmund. And then they wept, for their daddy was no more. The island waited quietly and respectfully for a few minutes to give Edmund time to process, and then it spoke again. "What are you going to use that money for?" "Sweet and salty revenge, duh," said Edmund, and they hopped in their rowboat and sped off at the maximum speed of a rowboat filled with many large treasure chests, which is basically the same speed as a geriatric tortoise taking a very leisurely stroll. "Seek not revenge, but the orgasm," moaned the clitoris, its voice echoing over the Mediterranean. Edmund kept rolling. By the time they arrived in Paris, Edmund's appearance had been entirely transformed. They were now passing as an extravagant noblewoman, a wearer of enormous and jewel-encrusted dresses, called the Countess of Monte Clitso. "But there is no such place," exclaimed the learned nobles of Paris. "Then where did I get my fucking buckets of gold?" asked Edmund, fluttering their fan coquettishly, and then made it rain francs. And the nobles of Paris had nothing to say to this, for in the great rock-paper-scissors game of the late feudal transition to capitalism, money smashes aristocratic title just as brutally as rock does to innocent scissors. Speaking of scissoring. There were 3 shady little shits who had originally subtweeted Edmond into prison, and they would each get what was coming to them. The first one was Fernand Mondodon, a rival for the hand of Edmond's first fiancée Mercedes. Fernand had betrayed Edmond to prevent the marriage, hoping to win Mercedes' affections. Edmond went looking for him. He's probably all married to Mercedes now, living the life of non-monogamously wedded bliss that I had dreamed of. All Netflix and back rubs and orgies, muttered Edmond resentfully as they stalked the streets of Paris in the vast and gleaming outfit of the Countess. But no, that's stupid. Women are people. They are smarter than a duck. They're not like, oh, well, there are 2 suitors and one is missing. Guess the other one wins by default. Edmond discovered that, in fact, Fernand's proposal had been rejected by Mercedes. Fernand took his spurning poorly and menaced Mercedes with an assault both violent and carnal, so she slit his throat and left him to bleed out in the street. Which we can agree was well enough deserved. In fact, in revolutionary France, where the guillotine had replaced soccer as the national sport, this counted as a moderate response. Oh, well, good, said Edmond when they learned this, and then took a quick detour to re-woo Mercedes. She had moved to a small farm in the country. Brace yourself, babe, said Edmond, as they sat before Mercedes in their fanciest Countess bling and blingette. I have a remarkable secret. The mysterious and formidable Countess of Monte Clizzo is, in fact, I know you're my fiancé, Edmond, said Mercedes. That's literally the dress you used to wear for drag nights, only you put diamonds on it. Oh, said Edmond, cool. There was a very long and awkward silence.
How long was it?
It was the silence that occurs between 2 people when one of them is expecting to have sex and the other one is not. Finally, Edmond spoke. Want to move back to Paris with me, get vengeance on those responsible for my unjust imprisonment, and have really hot revenge sex on their graves? Edmond, darling, that really sounds like a you project, not an us project. But I was imprisoned in the shithole de Queef for 6 years. Surely I have a right. Of course you have a right, but I've had a lot of personal growth in those 6 years, and one of the things I've learned is not to invest in your partner's projects if they wouldn't be emotionally healthy. Come to me when you've got something genuinely fulfilling to do. Edmond was thrown for a loop by Mercedes' newfound maturity, but in the end they nodded and caught the Countess Mobile back to Paris. Back in Paris, Edmond tracked down the other 2 people who had been responsible for their false imprisonment. And yeah, Edmond got revenge. Real filthy revenge, involving cat burglary, con artistry, highway robbery, robbery in a tunnel, piracy on the high seas, piracy on a moderately sized lake, piracy in an extremely small bathtub, butt stuff, a sugar dish secretly filled with salt, a salt shaker secretly filled with laxatives, and a laxative jar that contained a live viper. It was gross, it was satisfying, and it was occasionally rated NC-17. But at the end of all this revenging and pillaging and burning, and dramatically whipping off their mask to proclaim, aha, it was me, Edmond, the whole time! Edmond found themselves restless. They were not at peace. They were not fulfilled. The words of Mercedes echoed in their head. And so eventually, they gave all the piles of gold away to charity, and all the fancy dresses away to a charitable drag organization, and they returned to Mercedes' farm. Hey, lover, said Edmond, want to row out to a giant clit island with me and have sex there a lot? I thought you'd never ask, said Mercedes. They rowed the boat together for long days and nights, and though neither of them were men, both of them found the little man in the boat, which is a slang term for the human clitoris. Finally, they arrived at the mythic island of Monte Clizzo. I'm back, said Edmond, and I brought a friend. I'm glad to see you, replied the giant clit. And they pleasured themselves in each other endlessly, the one titanic clit and the 2 small humans, each spasming in turn and occasionally in unison. And they never left that magical place, for all human wisdom is contained in these 2 words, stay and come.